I'm Secretary of Psychedelic Research in Science and Medicine, and also Education and Communications Officer at My Medicine Australia. And along with the lovely Nick, was a co-founder of the Australian Psychedelic Society. I'm just going to start my screen sharing so we can get my slides up. I'd like to start just by saying again how grateful I am to be part of this day of knowledge sharing, community connection, reflection, and growth. I find it really meaningful that we have gathered here to share our curiosity, our interest, and our commitment to evolving our understanding and caretaking of our entheogenic ecosystem. And while we are always skirting through uncertainty, we are currently living in a more distinctly uncertain time. Life has recently made more palpable to us all the fragility of our systems, both in culture and even our bodies. We're all juggling so much within ourselves and for each other. I want my time here to be helpful, as well as meaningful, informative, and inspiring. We as a group have this day to breathe, learn, reflect, and refine the way we approach our lives and share it with others at this time. This time of physical distancing does implore us to reconnect with ourselves and others in authentic ways. And you might say it has been a transformative opportunity to reimagine how we work and how we connect. So, how do we make opportunities for transformation live on in our lives? And how do we prepare for them? How do we weave the threads of subconscious imagery, memory, impulse, and meaning into the practical insight so we can weave through the tapestry of our lives? Transformative experiences open us up to the possibility of honouring the totality of our being. And these experiences can be found through entheogenic plants and related medicines, practices such as meditation, dance, or other creative arts. Transformative experiences are a fuel to forge new paths on both the neuronal level and in our lives for ourselves and each other. In an ideal setting, they reconnect us to the moving process of our life, facilitate acceptance, and can open us to greater self-understanding of our sense of self-agency. In clinical trials, peak psychedelic experiences are frequently recounted as among the top 3 to 5 most significant in a person's life. Yet, I think many of us here this evening know that not every psychedelic experience is a peak experience. Not every trip takes you somewhere new. And some can take you down roads that you were not ready to go down or are unprepared for. 5-MeO-DMT will not do the work for you. So how do we make transformative experiences live on in our lives? How do we prepare for them? How do we bring these things forward in a way that can live on through our daily actions? Because every thought, every action wires the neural pathways of our brain. An ever-evolving neuronal roadmap of learnt meaning from which we interpret all our experiences. But by learning to curate our inner experience, we can determine the quality and the output of our lives and improve those around us. Our mind creates a representation of energy information from which we navigate through the subjective experience of our life. Each of us has our own unique landscape of thoughts, perceptions, memories, beliefs, intentions, attitudes, all woven in our own form of regulation. This is an embodied process and is largely subconscious. So let's explore some of the mechanisms that underlie this complexity, this once miraculous, thrilling, not often mundane, sometimes, and occasionally maddening experience of having a brain. So the human mind is naturally creative, constantly looking to make associations and connections between things and ideas, but also seeks to conserve energy and reduce uncertainty. Embedded in our brain's prediction machinery, thoughts arise and compete in the Darwinian process of selective retention moment by moment. For the vast sea of memories, sense data, genetic predilections, dreams, a lifetime of learned meaning, our behaviour is governed by these systems that continuously, automatically, and unconsciously generate predictions that inform perception and action. Adaptive, but not necessarily discerning or true, or as compassionately generated always as we might like. And this self-reinforcing mechanism is at the heart of many mental illnesses. It can make looking out at our personal, professional, and creative problems a challenge. This is the idea that our minds create a new mental model constantly, a constantly evolving mental model. And this is a neuroscientific idea of predictive coding. So it can sometimes feel like we're stuck in an old narrative. And the stories that we tell ourselves define us. Where attention goes, neurons grow, neurons that fire together, wire together, and storylines can solidify. Sometimes it feels like we're on automatic pilot, disconnected from our own true north. How do we take back the steering wheel? How do we write our own hero's journey? How do we look beneath the hood, wake up, and maybe even better wire our predictive coding? This talk will explore the opportunities we have for opening up to and defining new perspectives, for increasing our effectiveness as creative agents, becoming more conscious friends, co-workers, and partners. I'm centering this exploration on 4 concepts, particularly the top 2 up here. And these are the ideas of, through these experiences of learning, information processing, life, otherwise called, we want to develop a dynamic flexibility. We want to train our awareness and contemplation. We want to be connected to both the world and meaning. And we want to develop an idea of context engineering, which is a term a mentor of mine, Carl H. Smith, defined as a way of rethinking our environment and its constraints. It might be shifting our homeostatic set points. It might be using VR. Ways of changing our environment, structuring our environment so that we don't necessarily fall into the same old patterns and we can shift and keep moving with the forward flow of life. This has been a really interesting journal paper published recently by Robin Carhart-Harris and the team at Imperial, which expands on the neuroscientific theory of the dynamic framework of thought. And this has a spectrum of, what kinds of conscious experiences we have, from automatic constraints, deliberate constraints, whether they're strong or weak. You can see over here psychedelics are off to the left with less autonomic constraints, dreaming, and then rumination, very unconscious, mind wandering, obsessive thought. And on the right-hand side, we have creativity and goal-directed thought. So psychedelics expand our capability for idea variation. It may not actually solely improve our ability to generate goal-directed thought or creatively evaluate what the right action is next. So that's really interesting. How do we take the advantage that psychedelics do give us of this freer, more dynamic, more creative mental space, but also hold true to evaluation and goal-directed actions? This again is just exploring this idea that psychedelics increase idea variation, meaning that you might get ideas that you might not otherwise have had because there's an experience of conceptual blurring. Ideas become about more things and it's easier to make more novel connections. So meditation is an ancient contemplative practice which hones and expands awareness and navigation of conscious phenomena. And there is some evidence that entheogenic plants were actually used in rituals in the early years of Buddhism. And you can read more about that in Michael Crowley's book, The Secret Drugs of Buddhism. And what's really interesting is that there seemed to be an almost codependent arising of both meditation and psychedelics in the West in the 60s. And that's also explored in Alan Vander's book, Zigzag Zen. It's been said that the arrival of meditation and psychedelics at the same time happened together because they were a complementary way of learning about the mind from first experience. The question was, in traditional Buddhist practice, are psychedelic intoxicants? Are they cheating your way to enlightenment? Or potentially, are they a lit path? Debate arose about what was the true path. One may recall Alan Watts' famous phrase, when you get the message, you can hang up the phone. But as we discussed earlier, the shortcut is not always long-lived. How do we take altered states and turn them into altered traits? So I'd like to just share a little story, firstly, because who doesn't like a psychedelic history story? And this one's a particularly good one from the early days of the rediscovery of psychedelic awareness in the West. It's about Dr. Richard Alpert, now remembered fondly as Ram Dass. So young Richard was a Harvard psychiatrist, having discovered the curiosity of psychedelic experience, and travelled to India in 1967, and I quote, hoping to find someone who might understand more about these substances than we did in the West. Ram Dass met the renowned mystic and meditation teacher, Neem Karoli Baba. And when asked about psychedelics, he said, these medicines were used in Kulu Valley long ago. The yogis have since lost the knowledge. They were used with fasting, but nobody knows how to take them now. But being a psychedelic explorer, Ram Dass offered him the hefty dose of 900 micrograms of LSD to try in a state of meditation, and he obliged. In recalling Neem Karoli Baba's experience, Ram Dass said, my reaction is one of shock, mixed with fascination as a social scientist, eager to see what would happen. But nothing happened. Nothing whatsoever. A few hours into the experience, he opened his eyes and laughed at me. Now, that's quite a remarkable first psychedelic experience, particularly at such a high dose. Don't try this at home. And I wonder why this is. But luckily, science has now caught up with this phenomena and charted it in a placebo-controlled, double-blinded experiment which observed 38 experienced meditators during their first psilocybin experience in the context of a silent meditation retreat. It's a really fascinating study, one of my favorites. The silent retreat was 5 days. Participants settled into their practice for 3 days, and the active dose was given to them on the 4th day, and it was 20 milligrams, equivalent to around 4 grams of mushrooms. And the combination of the retreat experience and psilocybin greatly increased meditation depth, mystical type experience, and also the longevity of positive life effects at the 4-week follow-up. You can see down here that the key ones that change both, so the top one is the immediately after the retreat, and below is at the 4-week follow-up. And you can see the appreciation for life, self-acceptance, concern for others, concern with social planetary values, quest for meaning, spirituality, and appreciation of death have all gone significantly up and still remain up at the 4-week follow-up. Interestingly, concern for worldly gains and rigidness go down slightly, and is definitely more so in the psilocybin group. So it seems that psilocybin was an accelerator for these experienced meditators' experience. And these meditators did have 500 hours of meditation practice, which may be interesting and inspiring to note as a goal if you would like to one day take part in studies like this, because that's actually quite doable. That's doable in 2 years with a yearly 10-day Vipassana and a daily practice of 30 minutes. Not too hard. But the other fascinating finding was that this group experienced all the benefits of traditional psychedelic experience, shown here through the 11-dimensional altered states of consciousness scale. However, they experienced barely any anxiety, which is rare in psychedelic trials. Frequently, there is a subgroup that do experience quite high anxiety, and this limits their positive experience. So does meditation and the retreat setting provide a protective factor for these adverse events of psychedelics? So you can see here from a trial from Robin Carhart-Harris in 2016 investigating psilocybin for treatment-resistant depression. The purple line are the responders, those who got better after taking psilocybin. And the orange line are the non-responders, those who did not improve. And as you can see, the key factor holding back improvement, holding back remission from their symptoms was anxiety. Those who experienced high anxiety didn't have a strong spiritual experience, didn't have a strong blissful state, or insights. So does this mean that by teaching people psychedelics, teaching people meditation, which is kind of a way of exploring psychedelics, can we enhance both clinical outcomes and the safety of these substances, and also get better results? And I think one way to explain this phenomenon is through flow. You've probably heard of flow. Flow is that state of optimal experience where you feel at ease within yourself while doing something that feels right. Usually it's aligned with creativity or expression. And Mihai Csikszentmihalyi described flow as the best moments usually occur when a person's body or mind is stretched to its limits in voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile. Optimal experiences are something that we make happen. And you can see that there is a balance here between challenge and skill. And down the central line moving up is the flow channel. And we want people to remain in the flow channel, poised between boredom and anxiety. So this is where ideas of having low doses of psychedelics, having safe doses comes in, because you don't want the challenge to be too high. But how about improving our skills? How about learning how to navigate conscious phenomena? I think that we do have a solution for that. So I'm calling meditation the Psychonauts Dojo. And so psychedelics is non-specific amplifiers of unconscious mental processes described by Stanislav Grof. When you add that with meditation, a process which entrains in your awareness and your navigation through the contents of consciousness, meditation likely does increase the benefits and reduce the adverse effects of psychedelics. Meditation allows us to tame the monkey mind, increase self-awareness, self-compassion, and frequent meditators are able to switch between different styles of thought with greater ease, as observed in EEG studies. It's really quite interesting. And so the word psychonaut means one who can navigate the psyche. And perhaps meditation may be described as the practice of learning how to meditate. And actually, Albert Hoffman did say that these substances belong in the hands of meditation. So just to clear some misconceptions about what meditation is before we do our own practice. Meditation is much more than silence. Meditation is not simply about silencing the mind or quieting the mind. In fact, it's just about being with all your senses. And in Buddhist practice, the fifth sense is thought. Thought as a sense. So we're thinking about sounds, we're feeling our body in space, allowing our visual field to exist, allowing thoughts to exist and emotions to exist all at once. And this is this process of expansion and allowing the embodied processes of our conscious experience to rise up and pass away. I really do love Thomas Roberts' idea of mind apps, because advanced Buddhist practices do have a feeling of almost a bit of a discrete program for particular processes, whether it be compassion, uncertainty, gratitude, forgiveness, or creativity. There's a whole spectrum that we can hone, that we can create tools of awareness apps to enhance our lived experience by processing different aspects of our experience in these ways. So meditation is a practice for defining and refining your cognitive repertoire. And my teacher, Mingyur Rinpoche, always says that you are meditating as long as you are trying. There's no such thing as a bad or good meditation. It's about the unfolding processes and whatever you experience that to be. So in that case, everyone who's listening is a meditator. We've all done that before. But let's learn some more about what might motivate you to practice more. First, I'll just go back to flow theory for a second and talk about the idea of self-determination. Self-determination is a key aspect of flow, getting into flow states, and it is the motivation behind why we're doing something. Self-determination theory distinguishes motivation in four different ways: of intrinsic, autolectic, as in it feels good. So I meditate because it feels good, versus extrinsic, self-determined, which is I meditate because it's healthy for my mind and body and adds awareness to my relationships, versus extrinsic, non-self-determined. I meditate because my psychologist told me to. Or amotivational, I meditate and I don't know why. So we really want to hone that extrinsic self-determined. I meditate because it's good for me, because it will improve my relationships and I feel more creative. I meditate more regularly. Just that aspect is a great one to have in mind, because self-determination and meditation, or mindfulness, which is the westernized term for the same process and was frequently referred to in studies, self-determination and mindfulness definitely feed into each other. So now bringing in a bit of neuroscience here, in neuroimaging studies, it has been found that the right prefrontal cortex is associated with a certain kind of motivation. It's that I won't do something. I won't have that chocolate bar because I don't want to for some reason. I will is on the left prefrontal cortex. That's approach motivation. I'm going to exercise because of I want to be fit or healthy. And then there's in between that, bringing these two elements together to form a cohesive motivation is the I want. And that's associated actually with the connections between the two hemispheres and the midline and the corpus callosum, the prefrontal cortex. And what's really interesting is that the connections between these regions are larger and more densely connected in meditators. So that's a great form of motivation, right? So I just touched on mindfulness. Mindfulness is a westernized version of meditation. It's a westernized interpretation, and it is sometimes a simplification, but it has been really useful to bring it into therapeutic practices through ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, DBT, MICBT, mindfulness-based cognitive behavioral therapy. And it breaks down the traditional Buddhist practices into things like breath, body scanning, loving kindness. So a lot of these studies do refer to mindfulness, but they're talking about a very similar thing. And the 5 key facets of mindfulness are presence, so being aware of what's happening right now, like you're in a beautiful, warm, comforting shower or a refreshing cold shower, whatever floats your boat. You can feel the water on your skin. Being non-judgmental, which is, our brains are constantly assessing information by those ways of priors and expectations, and judgments arise, and maybe don't take them so seriously. Then there's non-reactivity, or equanimity, which is balance in the mind, which is allowing yourself to come back to a baseline readily, knowing a baseline, allowing sensations, even hard sensations, to arise and pass away. And the next step is name and narrate. So as you are present, as you are non-judgmental, as you are equanimous to these sensations, naming and narrating. Like, I feel anxiety. And there's really something powerful about that step, narrating. It reduces uncertainty. You now know what's happening. The brain can relax. And there's a great little acronym, OWN, by Dr. Dan Siegel, which is observe, witness, and narrate. Own your experience. And then self-observation, which is also related to Buddhist nature of mind practice. And that's the idea of developing your own observer, that there is experience and then there's an observer. Sometimes, so you're here talking, I'm talking, but maybe I can talk and watch myself. Is that possible? Can we do that? Can we both be in the experience but also observing the experience? And the 3 core stages of mindfulness, and this relates a lot to psychedelic assisted therapy and practice: intention, attention, and attitude. And these 3 things do really determine a lot of our lived experience. Hey, what our intention is when approaching a goal or a friend or any moment. What our attention is it on the person? Is it on our task? And an attitude. Are we compassionate when we notice that we're not actually attending to our friend? Are we compassionate when we see them sad? Or when we feel unable to work, do we offer compassion versus grumpiness, judgment? And so we see here this idea that what we're trying to do here is allow experience and sensation to flow freely, and just slowly over time reduce judgment. And before we do our first meditation, I just want to explore the idea of the future self, because that's a really important relationship. And funnily enough, it is a relationship. So we see on a neuronal level in our brains that when we imagine ourselves now, next week, last week, 5 years from now, it is something that seems the default mode network, which a lot of us are familiar with, this area of self-story, of rumination, does appear when we think about ourselves in the moment, short-term future, and both short-term and long-term paths. Strangely, when we think about our future self, that person 5 years' time who we don't quite know, another area of the brain lights up. Activity in the further forward to the lateral side, medial prefrontal cortex, where we imagine other minds. So it really is a relationship, the future self. And mentalizing about the past and the current self occurs in the default mode network. The future self, medial prefrontal cortex, somewhere else. This is a relationship we're building. And another interesting study was that psychedelics seem to improve our ability to predict our future behavior more accurately. So maybe psychedelics can bring us more in line with our future selves when taken in the way that I'm talking about, with intention, attention, and compassion in an ideal set and setting with meditation. So there's a concept in Buddhist practice of the bodhisattva, the awakened one, which is a Pali word for the one whose goal is awakening for the benefit of all beings. That's lovely. And apparently we all have one. Isn't that great? Buddhist practice involves seeking the bodhisattva within your own mind. And it's a practice of guru yoga, which is imagining your own mind merging with that of either a deity, a teacher, a mentor, or your own bodhisattva. And that's what I'm going to invite us all to do now. So just allowing yourself to come into your experience, closing your eyes, and sitting in a position you consider to be noble. Just noticing sensations in the body, sounds in the environment, fully inhabiting your lived experience as it is right now. And allow yourself to travel forwards in time to encounter your future self. It could be 5 or 10 years into the future. An older, more awake, evolved version of yourself. Just allow yourself to be in that environment with this being who unconditionally loves you, knows you, has been where you've been, and who knows where you could go. How does this being look at you? How do they hold themselves? What is the quality of their smile? Just allowing yourself to feel the presence, the truly compassionate witness. Still being present to the sounds in the environment, feelings and sensations in the body, any thoughts or emotions that may be rising. And holding presence with this being in a space of complete acceptance. How does your future self relate to you? How do you imagine them relating to others? Take a moment to imagine the wisdom, love, and kindness that this future self is willing to share, filling yourselves, your neuronal pathways, your being in this state of open awareness, completely allowing all thoughts and emotions and feelings to exist. Almost always, we're tiptoeing into a new epoch of our lives, and the person we are going to become is unannounced. You're actually going to cross the threshold without being able to name or speak the stranger you are going to become. A life sincerely followed is always surprising and always leads you into places you thought you did not feel you could enter, or that you felt you did not deserve. In the strange and becoming life that calls you in seeking to drink from a deeper well. And just remember the possibility of perceiving life from this vantage point and just noticing the observer on all of this, the observer of both yourself interacting with the future self, and thank it for its great work being here with you. Continue to let go into the loving presence. And allow any advice that your future self has to be shared with you in this moment. Any words of comfort, encouragement, just offering gratitude now for this experience. Feeling again the sensations in the body, the space behind your closed eyes, noticing that. And just notice if something's shifted, something's changed in these moments. Giving pause and space for change and vision and presence. Thanking yourself now for this time. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. So I hope that was a lovely experience for everybody. And I did read a short poem in part of that meditation by the poet David Whyte, in case you ever want to look that up. So perhaps we're all in a slightly more mindful state now. That's nice to think and to feel. So mindfulness can be thought of as a trait or a state. And what we do want to know is, how do we turn these states into traits? Because we see that in this neuroimaging scan here, the decoupling of the default mode network is observed both in acute experiences with psilocybin and ayahuasca, but also during meditation. So through this practice, we can create similar states to those we appreciate through entheogenic plants, psychedelic medicines. And as we saw from the study earlier on, perhaps even complement each other and move us forwards. And it really is about creating a compassionate awareness that encompasses all experience and building non-reactivity, non-judgment. Because it's funny, it was actually initially thought that mindfulness practice increased compassion, but in fact, compassion training increases mindfulness. And just remembering that there are these varieties of meditations that we can do. It's not just about breath, it's not just about sound. It can be about the future self. It can be about compassion or forgiveness. There are many modules. And by witnessing compassionately where you are right now, you can plot a path to where you'd like to go. It's like Google Maps. You can't go anywhere if you don't know where you're going. Or where you are right now. Both are important. And it's about being with feeling. And it's a funny thing, because I first learned about the insula when I was doing my neuroscience degree, and it kind of sounded a bit scary. It seemed to be this source of suffering, of anxiety, and I'm not sure why that happens in the brain. And what we've learnt since then, and what we're continuing to learn, is actually it is a feeling center. It's an emotional salient center, and it's along the lateral side of the brain towards the front, and just beneath the cortex. And although it does produce sensations of suffering, it also produces sensations of compassion. And we see that in meditators, those who are experienced meditators have increased density of the insula and also interconnection with the rest of the cortex. And it seems to be correlated with improvements in depression through a study of meditation training in depressed patients. So the lesson is, feel your feelings. They only last for a short time. But I think one of the most challenging feelings is uncertainty. And as we discussed, we are living through some uncertain times. And because uncertainty is a state of the brain is not quite settled on what's happening, hasn't quite determined, we don't know. And the funny thing is it's uncertainty, change, novelty, and surprise. They're all quite energetically expensive for the brain. The brain doesn't like it. It's more energy. It wants to minimize energy expenditure. And so it's quite easy to, as in this little GIF here, respond in a way of fear, respond in a way of judgment, and just continue doing what we've always done, or not say anything, or not do the hard thing. We get too comfortable with our priors. Unfortunately, it's cognitive bias. And in fact, in times of stress, beliefs tighten. It becomes a defensive mechanism of the brain during times of uncertainty and stress for beliefs to tighten. And that's a theory called TIBA, or tightened beliefs in response to uncertainty. That's something that must be happening on a global scale right now. How fun. And what I think is really interesting in a recent paper published from Imperial College, the model of rebus, which is relaxed beliefs under psychedelics, is that potentially in the right set and setting with the right cognitive tools, psychedelics may empower us to revise or update beliefs, prior beliefs. And what's also interesting in the ceremonial study that was done in Imperial College, it was found that with increased ceremonial experience, people not only became more open to experience, but they also became more open and tolerant of other viewpoints, which sounds really great to me. Again, these things have to be, those ceremonies were a very particular container. And the way that we do scaffold these experiences is vital for outcomes. And in terms of stress, which I'm sure some of us have experienced some high levels of in the last few months, there is actually a biological set point of positive stress. There actually is something called eustress, beneficial stress, which encourages growth. It shakes up the homeostatic network of our bodies, of our minds, and allows change to occur when eustress is in place, healthy stress, flexibility. And what I wonder is, could mindfulness training increase the capacity, the threshold for eustress before moving into distress through increased tolerability of uncertainty and challenging experiences? So in our next meditation, we'll be exploring some of that. So again, I'll ask you to close your eyes. And allow yourself to fully inhabit the lived experience as it is right now. Allowing any thoughts, emotions, sensations, sounds to arise. Being with each one, noticing how quickly they rise to pass away. How quickly a sound is received and then lost into the ether. How even with our eyes closed, we still have a visual field to gaze into. And as we settle in, I'd like you to cultivate in your mind, in your own way, your intention for this practice. What is it that you hope to bring into your life right now? For yourself, for those you love. Just deeply feeling that intention, that anchor of experience in your body, in your mind. And let it go. Returning the stream, changing sensations, senses, perceptions. Just being with each one. Feeling the breath. You may notice the temperature of the air as it comes in through your nostrils. Your hands on your lap or in space. Noticing too this sensation of having a mind, having a perspective, having some place to be watching, to be witnessing from. thanks for this opportunity of this precious human life. Giving thanks for the experience of eyes to see with, senses smell flowers with, taste, ears hear music with, body to dance with, express with, recognizing that not all conscious experiences are as complex, and this is a unique and profound vantage point that you find yourself in. No matter the circumstances or particular conditions, this is rare. Giving thanks for this precious human life. Again, just noticing sensation. Sound. And recognizing that there is no right or wrong thing to be experiencing right now. Just being with. And recognizing that, like waves in the ocean, everything is impermanent. And asking yourself to accept. May you accept whatever happens and make it your friend. Just noticing how sound, again, shifts so quickly, received, heard, gone, a new sound, a new sensation. Breath. It's different every time. And just bring to mind a circumstance in your life which you feel is uncertain, that holds some unresolved tension, or there is a sense of unease, an obscuration in your path right now. Just hold that experience in your mind with compassion, observing it. You may notice feelings arise, thoughts about the situation. That's all okay. Just keep watching, not getting lost, just watching. You may even allow your body to shift slightly to express the challenge of this experience. And just notice the causes and conditions that have come together to bring the circumstance to pass. Offering compassion to all involved, yourself, those affected, those around you. There may be challenges, and there may be many perspectives. Just allowing this to exist without judgment, just noticing our own thought, feeling, still being with sensation in the body. And just bring to mind another circumstance from your past where a situation that you thought was challenging, thought was hard, unsurmountable, was resolved, you overcame unexpectedly, allowing that sensation of surprise, gratitude. Coming back to how sensations arise and pass away. Noticing how interconnected sensation is. That the feeling in your back relies also on your awareness of it in space. Your lower back, your upper back, your neck. The interdependence of phenomena, of this shared experience. Just bring to mind some of the gifts you have in your life, the people, hobbies, circumstances, the sense of interdependence, mutuality. And yet, it's not enough, is it? Recognizing that the suffering we experience is predominantly produced by our own minds. And just call back your intention that you set for yourself at the beginning of this meditation. Noticing how this feels in the body and the mind. Noticing the breath. Letting go of any residue thoughts of circumstances, coming back to the open awareness. Allowing yourself to be from within yourself. And finally, just bring someone you deeply love to mind. Recognize that you want nothing more than for this person to be happy. To be free from suffering. To thrive. And just repeat in your own mind, I wish you happiness. May you know the causes of your happiness. May you be free from suffering. May you come to know the causes of your suffering. Just bring to mind a stranger, someone you may have met in a store, someone you see regularly at a shop, someone you don't know well, someone you wish well, and again, in your own mind, may you be happy. May you come to know the causes of your happiness. May you be free from suffering. May you come to know the causes of your suffering. And repeating the following for all beings. May all beings be happy. May all beings come to know the causes of their happiness. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings come to know the causes of their suffering. May all beings come to know and rest in loving presence. May all beings awaken and be free. When you're ready, you may open your eyes. So we'll have in a few minutes a time to share and reflect on how that felt for everyone and what that brought up for everyone. I'm just going to finalize on a few points, and I look forward to hearing how your conscious experience has shifted. I just wanted to touch on 3 key lessons I learned from my meditation teacher, Mingyur Rinpoche. And he described the 3 core lessons of meditation as a cognitive shift from the idea of permanence, the idea of I am a certain way. I am anxious, I am bad, I am whatever it is, to impermanence. In this moment, I feel. In this moment, I am. Takes a lot of pressure off. Going from singularity to multiplicity. This is the way things are done. This is the way I must have things. This is the way to, there are many ways. There are many vantage points. It's only through a variety of voices that we can ever come to know truth, something close to it. Of moving from independence, separateness. I am bad and I'm alone. Only me has this experience. Only I cause these problems, to interdependence, being part of an ecosystem, allowing yourself to receive feedback, recognizing it this is a shared experience, and that we, as Dan Siegel says, are all living at a threshold of the unknown, and with courage to move into new uncharted waters. And again, just reflecting on the idea that self-agency is weaved out of the fabric of interaction. This is a relational process, not necessarily the characteristic of a single individual, but emerges out of a set of independent feedback systems. The 3 jewels of Buddhism is the idea that there is the method, practice, the community, the Sangha that's shared, and then Buddha, which is the transformative element, the integration, the daily work, and the idea of enlightenment. And this also reflects in Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, the writer of Flow, his model of creative systems, which is there is the domain, the methods of the practice, the community, the field, and the individual, which has a creative output. And I think it's lovely that the Centre of Psychedelic Research at Imperial College based their symbol partially on the 3 jewels of Buddhism, with those 3 intersecting little cogs there. And Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, in his study of successful creatives, found that there were some key elements of shared experience, and that was they all had an unconscious sense of self-assurance that even though there are hard times, even though they make mistakes, even though you get things wrong, you stumble and fall, that it was going to be okay, that they would find a way. They had a sense of unconscious self-assurance. They could overcome obstacles, mistakes, traumas. And then there was a connection to the world. So the orientation towards that ecosystem, that feedback. And when you are unconsciously self-assured and connected to the world, you're at a great vantage point for the discovery of new solutions. One new solution I'd like to share with you briefly, something I'm really excited about, is the idea of virtual reality and psychedelics, and how we could leverage virtual reality or expanded reality systems to create context-engineered environments for psychedelic experience and also for meditation training. Imagine doing a future self meditation in a virtual experience with your future self sitting across from you, quite literally. So virtual reality creates context-engineered experiences, and they have the potential to hijack the human sensory-motor system, immersing users in an audio-visual journey. And they can provoke very specific cognitive and emotional responses, which I think makes them ideal for novel therapeutic applications. And there's very complementary features here, where psychedelics sensitize patients to the environmental context. Virtual reality is a designed, immersive, potentially therapeutic environment where psychedelics increase presence, openness, and visual appreciation. These are beautiful environments with tailored visuals and therapeutic narrative, and potentially attenuated even by biofeedback through heart rate monitor sensing, EEG data. So both modalities have been shown to facilitate emotional breakthroughs and peak experience, and I feel that their combination could be a great pathway to scaffold both the training of, the preparation for, the integration of, and even that early stage, the intention, attention, attitude, set point, creating an environment for really solidifying that for a therapeutic session. And if you feel like you have skills you can contribute to this project, please let me know. I would love to have some more programmers or visual artists or anyone who's really keen to help. And finally, I love the word cybernetic. Cybernetic means a self-steering system. So we're all cybernetic beings. And it may not feel like it always, but we are self-creating, we are self-navigating. And I wish you every success as you navigate your path in this vast ocean of existence that psychedelics do thankfully wake us up to remembering, as does meditation. I hope I've left you a little more curious, a little more aware, and a little more ready to self-determine your creative future. And finally, just some resources, my email. And my teacher, Miriam Rinpoche, is actually holding some online retreats through the months of July and August every weekend. Each retreat goes up a level, so I recommend looking now. The first one's actually next weekend, I believe. And he has student prices. I think that it would be a really great asset to anyone here to do at least one of those retreats. And since they're online, it's made things much easier. I don't have to travel to Tibet or anywhere else, to Nepal. And also Sam Harris. Miriam Rinpoche is actually a son of Sam Harris's meditation teacher, and he's created the Waking Up app, which I think is amazing. The daily meditations that change every day. There's also Insight Timer for those who want to develop your own silent practice without guiding. The book, Science and Meditation by Daniel Goleman and Richard Davidson, charts all the research, and that's the book I read. Once I read that, I knew I had to do a silent retreat because it seemed that the results really depended on that time alone in immersive meditative environments. And also for anyone in their journey after the ecstasy, The Laundry, great title, is a wonderful book by Jack Kornfield about how we can integrate transformative experiences into our lives. And lastly, I don't know what the moment figure point is on the fundraiser, but when I checked last, it was really close. Can we help us get there? That'd be great. And EGA really does deserve our support for facilitating these discussions for our community for so many years, and I'm sure many more years to come as they continue to grow. So thank you, everyone, and I open up to questions, comments, anyone who wants to share their experience of either meditation. Thank you very much.